and welcome back. It's been a month now, so welcome to the second episode of What's Up, DoC, a monthly podcast talking mainly about all things Final Fantasy XIV, but sometimes we go outside of the game. So, unfortunately this month I do not have Alice with us, but this month I do have our guest. He is a fellow officer in the FC. He is none other than our own Vea. Hello, Vea.
Hello everyone. And hi, Nova.
Hello there. So, to everyone listening, this episode is going to be a bit different. So last month we went with the direction of that we were focusing on mainly FanFest to start off with the speculation that happened, and some things were right, some things were wrong, but this month, this episode is focused on how new players can get into the harder content. So we're going to talk about Extreme Primals, Savage. Maybe we'll dip into a little bit of Ultimate today. I don't know, that's the really hard stuff. But also, Vea and I are going to give our own little stories about how we got into the content, and maybe to anyone listening, if you're a new player and you're wanting to get into the harder content in the game, maybe this will give you a little bit of an insight and how you can get involved as well. So, well, Vea, you and me, big Savage readers, you've got a group at the moment. Mm-hmm. Very close, almost there.
Yes, almost close done. To clearing Final Omega. We're currently working on Archive All and Hello World 2.
Mm-hmm. The Archive All is the hardest one.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what was it that got you into wanting to raid, basically? Like, I know you haven't been playing the game that as long as some people would, but I think you've only been playing the game for maybe, like, what, a year and a half, maybe? Maybe not as long?
A little bit over a year and a half, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, like, how did you get involved? Like, what really wanted you to, like, get involved and do the content? And what made you also want to be a tank? Why did you pick that role, really?
Okay. So, to start off with, my first class to 70 was not actually a tank. It was actually ninja.
Okay.
But, well, I'll go more into detail about that later. But really, I've always been the type of person to welcome a good challenge. Mm-hmm. I've always been the type of person to want to set goals for myself and exceed those goals and really work towards something that really drives me, you know?
Yes.
So when I first started playing the game and I was first leveling up my ninja, I had heard about Savage content and it really, really intrigued me. So one of the first things I did when I hit 70 on Ninja is that I instantly went to the Balance Discord, looked up a Ninja guide, and just learned my rotation.
Yes.
And my opener and all that. And then I looked up a YouTube video on DeltaScape 1, Altroid.
Right, Altroid.
Which was the raid tier that was current at the time when I first joined the game.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I took to Savage like a fish to water.
Very good.
My initial incursions into Savage were, I guess you could say, not the greatest. Mm-hmm. I only completed up to Delta 3.
Mm-hmm. That's far.
At the time. It's pretty far, yeah. But I wasn't really satisfied by my own performance. I felt like we could do a lot better. But when Sigmascape was released, I ended up applying to this survey or petition, I guess, or whatever, that Kaiser put out in the FC Discord. Basically, because he was trying to create new additional FC raid teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured that it was time for me to actually join a static. Because in DeltaScape, I had pugged everything. Everything was done through Party Finder, and while that was certainly enjoyable, I had my fill of it, really.
Yes.
So I decided static is the way to go, and because I wanted to be more organized and such. And so I joined Raid Team 2, since it was just newly created. And through some events and such, I ended up becoming Raid Leader. I was originally slotted to play DPS, Ninja of course, for that team, but due to some circumstances, I ended up switching to Warrior, which, well, here I am now, playing Warrior.
Yeah.
Tank,
Very well, my dad.
Yes. Far better than I would be on Ninja, honestly. So, definitely found my true calling, I guess you could say.
Tough class to play optimally in Raid Ninja. Very tough.
Yes, very tough.
So, like, if obviously that's really good. Like, you've been leader of that team for 2 tiers now.
Yes.
So, obviously, you guys were very successful last year. Sigma was beaten.
Yes.
A few bumps in the road, but now you have actually got through AlphaScape a lot quicker than last year because there's been less issues, obviously, with some people having to quit and some people not finding any interest in the raids.
Right.
So, if you had to give any advice to someone in RFC, like, I don't know, I'm not going to name any names, but someone who plays Warrior, for example, like, what would your advice be, like, to help them get involved? Because obviously sometimes there isn't any space in some of the FC raid teams we have, so they'll have to pug it, and sometimes going into pugs is a very daunting thing because you don't know how people are going to receive you and how well you're going to do. So what would you say to a new player that's going to say, right, I'm going to try this? Like, what is the first thing they should do instead of just jumping right in there and just going into a party?
So really, I have stressed at length that the very first thing, the very basic foundation that every player who is interested in harder content has to have is a solid understanding of how to play your class, play your role.
Yes.
For a tank specifically, even tanks have rotations, and they're a pretty important part of playing your class properly. And so really the first thing I would say is go get a guide for how to play Warrior, for example. Either from, my personal choice would be from the Balance Discord, since they have a good collection of guides for every single class. But definitely go read through a guide first, try to parse through it and try to understand it, and then take what you have learned from that guide and go start hitting a training dummy, whether that's in Stone Sky Sea or a training dummy at the FC house. Definitely start working on first your opener and then your rotation.
Yes.
Now, Warrior in particular is fairly interesting in that its rotation is more of a priority system. You have gauge management and henceforth, and so its rotation is actually fairly intuitive to pick up, I think. It's not actually too hard to understand how to play Warrior, at least on a basic level.
Yes.
Certainly with the inclusion of inner release ever since 4.2, Warrior has become somewhat of an easier tank to play at a basic level.
Really bad spot at the start of Stormblood.
Warrior. Yeah, I recall hearing issues about 4.0, 4.1 Warrior.
It's because, like, when you, say, for example, when you swap your beast gauge, when you go from Defiance to Deliverance, like, if you run, like, 60 beast gauge, it would be, like, cut in half or something when you swap the stance.
There was some stuff like that really aggravated some of the Warrior players out there. So that particular change was a really good one, where they took away that feature of removing, like, part of your gauge.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, first, definitely understand the basics of your class and what your class is supposed to be doing during a fight. Warrior, of course, is probably going to be the tank that pulls the boss and initially holds aggro. You do have cooldowns that you do have to manage. And then once you've understood the basics, that's where you can go and look up a video and to see mechanics.
Yes.
You want to have a general idea, unless you're the type of person that is really wants to prog a fight blindly. Although in such cases, that's usually more with the organized static. That all wants to do that, right? Most of the time, you will want to see mechanics to get a general idea and understanding of what goes on during the fight, so you come prepared. And then once you've seen the mechanics, maybe watch the video a couple times, that's when you can kind of jump into a fight. Jump into the first fight of a Savage tier. And then you start trying to proc that fight. You start trying to see, okay, here is how I respond to these mechanics. This is how I execute my rotation during this fight, etc., etc.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because I will say, myself, I got into raiding. I really was scared to do it. I didn't want to go into it at all, so I didn't really do much of Delta Escape. I did Alteroid, but I didn't really, like, I'm a Bard main, as you know.
Right.
I really did not know how to play Bard at all. It's one of the easiest classes in the game. Like, how can I not? But I sort of got away from the whole interest in Savage. But I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy of 6, as you know.
Ah,
And
yes.
when Kefka was revealed, I was like, oh, I want to do this. Because they did Neo X Def the previous tier. I was like, God, Kefka's definitely going to be the final fight. So I said, right, okay, I'll give it a shot. But I made sure to do everything possible to ensure that I at least had an idea of what I was supposed to do before I did anything.
Right.
So, as you said, I went on to the balance. I have a personal good friend on Cactar called Kagiso. I asked her for help, and she linked me a couple of videos, a couple of documents, how to learn the basic rotation of the opener for the Bard, and basically just how to play the class to its highest potential, even though I'm still terrible at bloody thing.
I don't think you're terrible, no.
I'm not the best Bard in the FC, that goes to Chitoge. But if you think about it, right, Savage may not always be the best start. What if you were saying to someone else new that's maybe like, yeah, I've learned how to play this, but I really don't want to start off with Savage. I want to start off with something difficult, but nothing too intense. What would you recommend? Like, what would be a good choice?
So the game certainly does have options for those who don't want to immediately jump into Savage. Definitely, Extreme Primals are a very approachable series of fights, in my opinion. The mechanics involved in these fights tend to not be as difficult as the mechanics in Savage, and so they're excellent places to test out your rotation, to gain better understanding of your class, since they are a bit easier to manage and handle. Also, you can also get a mount from them, so that's an extra bonus, right?
If you're lucky.
Yes, if you're lucky.
But yeah, I agree with you. That's the thing. I didn't. That was the first thing I did because obviously Sigma was 4.2 that came out. It's crazy to think that was actually all a complete year ago that
Yeah.
came out. Byakko was the current primal then. I remember that.
Yes.
Byakko, if you mess up, if your party messes up in a primal, that's the other thing that might put people in the new players a little bit more off of, being stressed out of. They can go in there and be a bit more chilled because extreme fights are very heavy lenient. Like
Yes.
if you mess up a few things, it's still like easy to recover. Like even if you have like 4 people dead, as long as they get up in time, you can still get it done.
Right.
And if they're also sort of the best thing to do before Savage because you want that better weapon. You want that weapon
Exactly. Yes.
going in. But even if it really depends if you're someone like me who had a directed determination bow, which was horrible, and I had that for like 6 weeks trying to build up my flipping mendacity it was back then, trying to
Right.
get the tome weapon because it took me so long. It took me flipping 12 clears to get that flipping diamond bow. I swear to God, 12 clears to get that bow.
Oh,
And
that's unlucky.
I had to buy my chess piece with 8 books. It was awful. But thankfully, Alphascape was a lot nicer to me.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it was. I was very pleased. But if I was a new player, like at the same time, there's 3 roles: tank, healer, and DPS, and multiple different DPS roles. But I want to mainly discuss one role in particular because I viewed this role as the most stressful in raiding, and there's probably a couple of people who will be listening to this and nodding their heads. A couple of specific individuals who raid in our FC in this role. Healing is in my opinion, something I would never ever want to do in a savage fight, because honestly, the amount of responsibility that is on your shoulders is so intense.
Tremendous.
Is
Yes.
tremendous. Like honestly, I always view healing as the most important role. I know people will be like, well, wouldn't that be the main tank? Well, at the end of the day, yes, because the main tank is the one holding the boss, but at the same time, that main tank needs to be kept alive
By the
through whole thing,
healers. Yes.
by the healers, or we have some issues.
Right.
To anyone healing, now one of my advice is to anyone out there healing, you really need to practice a lot. It is the role, I would say, that needs the most amount of practice, because if you need to get the healing timings down.
Right.
especially for something like, I'll throw an example. This would be a perfect example for you because you know how much this hurts. Ion efflux.
Yes.
That's it's painful.
Very, very
It's very, very
painful.
painful. So like, what would you, what would your advice be to a healer in the FC who is, you know, like traumatized of healing something as intense as that, for example? What would you
Um,
say?
the first thing I would say is that it's okay to make mistakes while you're trying to learn and practice healing a certain part of a fight. Everyone makes mistakes. It's perfectly natural. And when you're learning something, when you're trying to adjust and develop your muscle memory for a particular part in a fight, you are bound to make mistakes. And that's okay, right? As long as you constantly put effort towards refining, like, I'm going to use this heal here, I'm going to use this healing GCD, this healing OGCD here and here.
Hmm.
Uh, as long as you keep making effort and practicing, you're
Hmm.
bound to get results. You're bound to
Yes.
get through that hurdle. Also, I would say it helps to have sort of an idea of what kind of healing spells you're going to use for a particular mechanic in a fight. So let's take an example, Ion Efflux, since we brought that up earlier. Generally, you know that when you've seen a video of the fight or you've read a guide of the fight, you know that the guide or the video has told you this is big incoming damage. So you want to make sure you have an idea in your head. Okay, I'm going to be using my strongest healing spells here. I'm going to be using such and such mitigation for it as well. So it sort of helps to have a plan in mind already. I'm not But I'm not saying like plan out every single spell you're going to use for the entire fight, right? That's something
Yes.
that really, really only the really hardcore people, I guess even some of the mid-core people will do. But
Hmm.
definitely go in with somewhat of an idea of what you're going to use.
Yeah. See, that is perfect. That is exactly the advice I give. But there's also one other thing to anyone new that is going to heal. You aren't the only healer in the team. Remember
Right.
that now. Communication, communicating with your co-healer is a godsend to you because you need to communicate with that person because as I mentioned, using your gear saying, oh, I'm going to use this OGCD here, I'm going to use this there. You need to primarily communicate that with your co-healer because then, for example, if you are an astrologian and you have your co-healer is a white mage, for example, and there's an upcoming tank buster, which if the warrior is going to go into home gang, they're going to drop instantly to 1 HP. So you would probably say to your co-healer, right, okay, can you use benediction here?
Right.
And then what I will do is in the next tank buster, I will pop a shield, but at the same time, I will also use oh god, forgive me, I forgot the what's the Astra one called again? Essential dignity. Um,
Yes.
I will use essential for that one, which having that sort of small communication just helps because that could mean like the white mage, for example, okay, they're going to use essential here. I can just continue casting stone for refreshing my dots, you know, because
Yes.
it's not healing's not all about healing because healers can pump out some serious damage as well.
Right.
Like,
And they should.
hmm it's a big part. Is just because the class is called healer does not mean that everything you need to be doing is healing. It's your primary role, but at the same time, you want to pump out that damage as well because I've seen scholars do 5,000 DPS and it's like, what the hell?
It's
Uh,
insane, yeah.
it's ridiculous. Poor white mage can't do 5k unfortunately, but because it's obviously it is the more core healer out of the free healing jobs in the game.
Yes.
But you need to do damage at the same time because if you're not doing damage, you're going to hit the Almighty Enrage. So that's something is like how can a healer really, how can a healer, you know, do so much damage at the same time while keeping everyone alive? What is the best way to do that really for someone new to learn how to plan out doing damage and healing at the same time?
So that's really, I think, the hardest part or the trickiest part
Hmm.
for healers because not only do you kind of have to plan out what spells you're using, you kind of have to plan out with your co-healer. And I'm talking
Yes.
within organized static, right? If this is a pug situation,
Good luck.
you good luck with that. You're probably not going to get too much planning done. You kind of just have to go off of what the other person's doing, right?
Hmm.
But in an organized situation, you do want to say, I'm going to use this and this at this time.
Hmm.
And then you might be talking to your co-healer. What do you have available, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Really, the key thing to note is that anytime you're not using a healing spell, you should be using a damage spell.
Hmm.
And so naturally, if it follows that once you kind of planned out your healing a bit, all the rest of the time is just devotion to damage spells. And so that's kind of really how the process plays out.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I've honestly been trying to learn it myself because I've actually been messing around with White Mage in some harder content in the game.
Hmm
Personally, the thing I need to improve on myself is my tanking. I'm fucking terrible at tank. I can keep the boss,
I
but
would
Jesus,
I
I can't
would
do
argue
damage.
that tanking is actually the easiest role
Hmm.
in the game, at least in
Really?
higher content.
Hmm.
It's understandably more intimidating. I constantly read people's comments on Reddit or hear people say how, oh, I'm scared of tanking because I think a lot of people feel the pressure of when they are a tank, they feel the pressure of being the quote unquote leader of the group
Yes.
because they are the one in dungeons, they are the one pulling the mobs, they are the one leading the way. In raid, they're all still the ones pulling sometimes. And so, well, generally they are at the forefront of the group. And
Oh
so
yeah.
a lot of people definitely feel intimidated and scared of having that sort of responsibility. To which I say, yes, I too also had that sort of intimidation and apprehensiveness when I first started out. But gradually, the more you do it, the more you get used to it until you kind of get so used to it that you don't really think anything of it anymore, right?
Hmm. Yes.
But generally, once you get past that initial hurdle, I think tanking definitely is the easiest role to excel on. Rotations are fairly simple by design. All you really have to manage is cooldowns properly when tank busters are coming,
Yep.
stuff like that. So,
Hmm. And that's also another thing, yeah, because such a big responsibility is planning out when to use your cooldowns. Because I see, so I'll tell you a story. I was doing a Chaos Pug a couple of weeks ago. I was just
mhm.
bored. Said, ah, do you know what? I'll do Chaos. Watched a Warrior. I honestly don't think he knew how to play his class at all. Like he wasn't
Mhm.
doing the highest amount of damage. I'm not here to judge people at the end of the day. I'm just here to get stuff done because this episode is all about people wanting to the do's and don'ts. You want to learn the do's and don'ts of how to play your class, and this is a huge don't to anyone listening that's potentially going to play Warrior. Watched a so the tank buster in Chaos is a mandatory tank swap, as we all know,
Yes.
as you know. I witnessed a warrior. Now he didn't invoke Shirk, which was also a big no-no.
hmm
He popped didn't use home gang, which really sometimes you really don't do if you use your cooldowns right. Instead, I just watched him use a simple. What did he use? He used a simple rampart, and then once he got hit by it, he then popped vengeance after he got hit by it, thinking he would live. You know the debuff where if you get hit by one more auto, you're just gonna hit the floor.
Ah, yes.
I'm just like, yeah, that's not how it works. And
Yeah,
then
that's
they
not
tried
definitely not
to.
how it works.
It's not how it works, and then they tried to argue their case in chat. But this is the reason I'm bringing this up is to anyone that is going to dip into the party finder if they aren't able to find a raid group straight away. It is very late into Alphascape, so it might be quite difficult. So this is the type of stuff you will not always experience in the party finder in the pug life, but this is sort of some people you will bump into because
Yes.
there's some interesting characters on there. And as someone who, before I found my group, who pugged the entirety of Sigmascape, which is something I never ever want to do again, it was a horrible, horrible experience. It is the hardest way to get any form of content done, but still I recommend doing it because practice makes perfect. You're getting more
Yes.
experience, and you'll feel more. The less you make a mistake, and the more used you get to making the perfect moves with your class and doing the mechanics over and over again, the more comfortable you are, and it just feels like a smooth breeze. So that's why I still recommend that once you've learned your job, take some time, and then, as we previously spoke about, we'll go into a primal.
hmm
Hi, this is something. This is the interesting thing. So, the next step after Savage is probably the most daunting thing ever, and I'm a little bit intimidated by it as well, which is why I haven't really done it. Ultimate.
Ah, yes.
So, to anyone that doesn't know what Ultimate is, so there are only two Ultimate fights in the game, and they are based on the final boss of A Realm Reborn, and the other one is based on the three final bosses of the first three raid tiers of 14, and those are Twintania, Nail, and Bahamut. Ultimate is different to Savage. It is not for the faint-hearted. Let's say that. It is
That's
very
a good way to
difficult.
put it.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah, yeah. It is very difficult, especially the UCOB one, which is the coil one I previously mentioned.
Yes.
20-minute long fight where if everyone dies, you go back to the start. Very, very, very difficult with very difficult mechanics. A long
Yes.
fight. Now, I don't know if you dipped into any form of Ultimate when you had some spare time at all.
I unfortunately have not.
I don't know if you plan to at some point, but
I do.
Go ahead.
I've had, I guess, ideas, or I've had the want or the desire to at least try to find a group for Ultimate Weapon Ultimate. But unfortunately, I don't think I have enough free time to devote to that. So
especially with the current raid group doing alpha.
yeah. So that plan has kind of been shelved in the meantime, but I do hope to get into Ultimate content someday.
Oh yeah, definitely. My group of we've already planned out because we're sort of predicting the future here. If they're going to do the same sort of process, we think that the next Ultimate is going to be based on the Heavensward raid tiers of Alexander. And that's something that I would be very excited for. And once we finish the first raid tier of Shadowbringers, when that eventually comes, that's something we're definitely going to be hopefully
looking forward to.
Sinking our teeth into. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to giving advice to a new player, my advice would be to anyone listening to this when it comes to Ultimate is do not even think about. Well, first you need to beat the Savage tiers before you even get it, because it's mandatory. Like you have to beat it to unlock the fight.
Yep, that's a hard requirement.
Hard requirement, definitely. But my advice would be do not go into this fight with the same mindset that you have in Savage, because the difficulty scale from Savage to Ultimate isn't like a small jump. It is one giant leap. It is a very big difference, and I know if he does listen to these episodes, my buddy Crash or Daniel Fairclough, some people know he cleared Uwu just 2 days before Alpha Escape came out, and my god, I've never seen a broken man before. It is a very, if you think Savage is stressful, like this stuff is next level.
Yes.
And there's the infamous I do love him, Raider, as you definitely know him, Xeno.
Yes.
I remember he made a guide for the Unending Coil of Bahamut, and the one line he said in his guide was completely true. He said that this fight is extremely difficult, and due to this difficulty, members may need to be adjusted.
Yes.
Simply just because of the amount. Like, you need to know how to play your job to all utmost perfection to get the job done in Ultimate, and you need to be completely 100% consistent. I know a guy called Beam, and he's on Coral. He's been playing the game for like 6 months, and he's beaten Ultimate. He's beaten Ubu. And I was just sat there like, I've been playing this game for a year and a half, and he's just walking past this like it's nothing. And he's
some people out there are that good.
Yeah, no, it blew my mind. I'm sitting here like I'm struggling. He's just walking through this like it's nothing. And he plays Paladin, and he plays exceptionally well Paladin. I just don't know how, but like, is there anything maybe you can have an intake for, what you would say to a new player that's decided, right, I've got Savage done, let's take a step up, let's give Ultimate a try?
So definitely the same advice that applied to starting out Savage kind of also applies to Ultimate content, where what I mean by that is you really need to make sure you have not just good understanding of how to play your class and how to optimally do your rotation, but an excellent understanding,
Mm.
superb refinement of how to properly do your rotation, because the DPS checks that are involved with each ultimate fight
Hmm.
require you to play your class to the utmost of your ability. So definitely, that's why a lot of groups, statics that are attempting to prog on either ultimate fight, they require members that want to join them to have certain or to be capable of outputting proper DPS levels or what they would
Hmm.
consider proper levels. So that's the very first thing. You need to have an excellent understanding of how to properly play your class. From there, and only from there, you can start working together with your group. You can join a group and then start working together with them on understanding mechanics, figuring out how you want to approach certain mechanics in that particular fight.
Hmm.
And then comes execution and practice.
Yeah, and when it comes to Ultimate, like, when you're progging Savage, you will have loads of wipes and you will need to learn the mechanics
Yes.
over and over again. But the thing is, Ultimate has a different twist to anyone that is also thinking it's just one boss, because you might be a bit confused, because I did say that one of the fights had 3 bosses you need to fight. Yes, you have to fight 3 different bosses one at a time.
Yes.
That's another thing. So not only are you trying to learn a mechanics for one boss, you're trying to learn mechanics for 3 bosses. And while it may be some players who've did the old coils back in the day have had a easier advantage because they knew every one of the mechanics that was in the coils back then. Trust me, I don't know any of them because I didn't play the game. No
I don't know
idea.
them either.
The only the only time I've seen them is when I'm doing unsynced runs at that tier
Yeah.
and trying to get kills for it. But yeah, if anyone is listening here and is wanting to do ultimates, seriously, you will require a long amount of time. It'll probably be months before you even get the kill, because it takes a lot of practice. So, one final thing I want to bring up, and this is one thing I wanted to discuss, because when a new player is finally learned their rotation, they are going to want to know how much damage they're actually doing. So, luckily, there is a very useful tool. ACT, as you'll know, it is a parser. Tracks not only your damage, but your entire raid team's raid team's damage. It can be a good motivational thing, because someone could be doing amazing, like, oh yeah, I did so well, and then they'll upload it to this website called Fvlogs, as you know.
Yes.
And there you can track, and you'll be given a percentile of how you're doing. It ranges from grey, green, blue, purple, orange, and then gold, something I'll never have. Never ever, not even an orange. It is a good way to analyze and improve, but I also call it the non-uniform day when you were at school, aka judgmental day, because when you go into a party, and I will admit that I know a few people, including myself, who are infamous for doing this. You will type in the person's name and you will check to see
Yes.
what they're doing.
I will confess that I do the same.
Everyone does it, but don't let that throw you off, because just keep your head down and get yourself improved each day.
Yes.
But
I will add that while I do that, I do not deny. I don't kick people off of
yes,
say,
I
my
don't
party finder group just because I see that they're not doing so well, or that they haven't been doing so well in this particular fight. The thing with me is that if you have a parse for that fight, that means you've cleared that fight. That means you understand the mechanics to a reasonable extent, at least. And so you're perfectly capable of clearing the fight.
That's true.
So
Absolutely.
I don't kick people, even if they are doing, unless for exceptional reasons, I won't kick people.
Definitely. That's my reasoning as well. Everyone's well, because even so, like, if you look at someone who's joined your party and they, for example, O11S Omega, the previous 2 fights they've got, I don't know, maybe a purple and a blue, but on Omega they've got a grey. You could take into concept that something could have happened. Somebody could have killed them.
Right, exactly.
They couldn't have been healed. They could have had a heavy dot, and nobody did something to do it. And it's not exactly their fault.
Stuff can happen every single run of
exactly.
the fight.
So for new people, obviously wanting to track their damages, if you see that you do something like you only parse a 9, don't let that be something that just makes you say, okay, this I'm just no good at this. Just don't give up. Like, always try your best. That's all you can ever do. All you can do
Yes.
is your best. And
Everyone starts from somewhere, you
everyone
know?
does start from somewhere. And sometimes if you're not doing good in a certain job, there's multiple jobs in this game. Find another one that you like and get onto it. Other advice for me would be when you are raiding, always remember key essentials. Always bring food.
Yes.
Always make sure you have figured out what stats you need, and always make sure that you meld your gear. I say meld gear last because I'll tell you why. Because I have bumped into so many people who do not meld their gear. It is really annoying because when you ask them why they don't meld their gear, they just make up a most random excuse. Like if they're absolutely broke, fair enough. But if to anyone who is curious about this in the FC, you're in a very, very big FC, and there's loads of people who will help you with this.
Yes.
If you need anything crafted, if you need food, you need pots, all you do is type in chat and ask, "Can anyone help me?"
Yes.
That's something
More
I have
often than not,
time.
somebody
Yes,
will help you
yes, time
immediately.
and time again. Don't be afraid. We're a big community. We're all here to help each other. And I've got people. I'm not going to name any names as I would never do, but I've had people send me tells saying, "Hey, I don't want to be rude here, but it's okay if I ask you to craft me some shakshoka." And I'm like, well, if someone asks me that, I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I've only got a level 40 culinarian, but I'll be happy to forward you to someone else. But in future, don't be afraid to ask. It's no issue. Everyone's here to help because that's just what we are. We're just a big family in here. So please, anyone, people listening, just ask for any form of advice in the FC.
Yes.
That's it. We're a big community. Loads of us have Omnicrafters. You're one of them.
Yes.
And I'm sure
I certainly am one of them.
bombarded with requests. This is the point, people. By the way, if you see him online, just go up to him.
Yes, yes.
Just go up to him and pester him away. That's what he's there for. But that's really it, folks. There's not really much we can talk about it. It is a very big subject of AI. So we've been doing it for a while now, but
yes, it's also a subject that both of us can probably talk.
We could go on for hours.
We could go on and on.
We could be here till the next expansion comes out. Seriously, but we're gonna leave it off there. Yeah, people, if you really are, we're always online. Like, if you have any other questions, please come up and ask us. That's what we're here for. We're here to be not exactly bugged, but we're here to be, helpful towards you.
Exactly.
So, if any of us, even if any of the other officers on, like Kaiser, Alice, Annie, the list goes on, come up to us. We'll be more than happy to help you. We have multiple raid teams, and sometimes we are continuing to expand and form new ones. Hopefully, we will have more going into Shadowbringers. Currently, we have 4.
3, I believe. I believe we originally had 4, but one of them is, I think, on hiatus.
Hiatus. Yeah. Okay. In regards to that, I will say, listeners, if you are interested in starting your own team, it's no problem. You can put it forward with one of us, and we will be more than happy. Because trust me, the more people get involved in the content, it's good. It is really good for the FC because we want to have as many people get involved in this as possible. Because it is fun, clearing those fights. You have the feeling of clearing a savage tier is it's amazing because
exhilarating almost.
You just put so much hard work, months upon months, and just non-stop grinding. Once you get it done and you actually get that gear and the mount, because there's mounts in it. If anyone's a mount collector, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely worth the reward. You'll meet some interesting toxic people along the way, but that's the fun of it. It's all about going out there, and you make some good friends in raid as well. Some people, it's a very good social thing. So if you're looking to make new friends as well, definitely something to get involved with.
Yes.
But there's not much to it, guys. Really appreciate you all listening again. We will have another episode this month because FanFest in Japan is coming up. Big time.
Ah.
FanFest Japan, March 26th, 27th, 28th, one of those days. It's 2 days, but. And we're going to hopefully get the reveal of another new job, which still think it's going to be Dancer. I was technically right with Gunblade, but we all knew it was going to be Gunblade anyway because of the first trailer that was shown off last year, just before the year ended. And I'm sure you as an Omni Tank will be super excited to dip into that.
Yes, definitely excited for Gunbreaker.
It's going to be good. I'm hoping that it's going to be a very fun job because it does look entertaining. So one more thing before we go, listeners. Next month, when the FanFest does come around, before the recording of the episode happens, I will be doing something in the Discord where you guys can put your questions into the Discord and we will answer some questions. And next month we will have a new guest, and we'll also hopefully have Alice back as well. So, but I would like to thank Ve for coming on today. Thank you very much, Ve. It's been very fun having you.
Thank you. It's certainly been a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely, and hopefully we'll have you on again. Hopefully before or after the first raid tier of Shadowbringers happens, so we can jump into some discussions of that. But leaving on that, thanks again for coming on. Thank you again, listeners, for joining us, and we will see you next month for the FanFest Speculation in Japan. Take it easy, everyone.
Hey there friends, Alice here. Thanks for listening to this month's edition of What's Up DoC. Remember to ask your questions in the FC Discord. We have a specific discussion thread just for you all. If you'd like to be a guest or have a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, pop that info in there too. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for listening.